Hey, gorgeous souls. Hope you're having a great day. Wanted to jump in here and talk about the freeze response because this is such a huge one and is especially what we experience generally when we are navigating burnout or experiencing burnout. Now, freeze can happen at any particular time. Any time that your system becomes overwhelmed, generally you will drop into the freeze response. Now, the freeze response is really important to understand. It's generally when we feel very low, we feel apathetic, may feel emotionally and mentally really low. We can feel exhausted. It can feel like I just need to motivate myself or push myself to get things done. There can be a lot of resistance to trying to do things or take on more things. Often we can feel very full, particularly from not being able to take in new information, or your cognitive function may be reduced, as well as like things like brain fog and things like that. So we can feel very full, but feel also very empty in the tank as well. And I often describe it like trying to get through the day as if you've got, it's like you're wearing concrete boots trying to walk through a boggy marsh. It can feel extremely difficult and extremely exhausting when we're in the freeze state. So freeze can happen, as I mentioned, it can be a chronic or it can be an acute situation that triggers freeze, meaning long-term stress, long-term things, too much for too long, meaning too much pressure, too much, hey Tony, great to have you on, too much pressure, too much exhaustion, too little care, definitely can be a thing, but too much too fast or too much too soon can also be a thing. So an acute stressor or multiple acute stresses in a short space of time, a few months or a few weeks, definitely can tip us over the edge into freeze as well. So when we're experiencing freeze, basically it is the body's survival mechanism to try and conserve energy because we're so depleted or our nervous system is so overwhelmed. So it is a survival response, just the same as the fight, flight, freeze or fawn response. However, understanding freeze is absolutely critical to healing burnout long term because the inner critic often goes wild, meaning it can really tear us down, berate us, make us feel absolutely terrible, because remember that the more physically compromised that we are, meaning the more exhausted we are, the louder the inner critic gets, because its job is to protect us and keep us safe. And so it becomes hyper vigilant to our environment, to ourselves, to what we think that we're failing in, how we're not perfect enough, all of the things. Hey Joe, great to have you on. It can be really, really challenging when we are navigating the freeze response with what happens in the inner critic's mind. This is where grabbing my Thrive book, if you haven't already got it, definitely can be a massive help in understanding these pieces within ourselves and understanding it's not our true self, it's not our most authentic self, it's certainly not our higher self that is communicating this way. It is our ego survival mind that is based in fear, that is trying to signal to us all the reasons or everything that could go wrong, may go wrong. So anxiety can also be very, very highly present, which then actually overwhelms the nervous system even more and can keep us stuck in a state of chronic freeze. That was exactly what I went through when I experienced my burnout as well back in 2020. I had experienced burnout a couple of other times, but it was a particularly long recovery time. That phase of burnout that I went through was by far the worst I had ever experienced. I had chronic long-term stress as well as 3 acute events happen in the 1 week that were all massive grief events and just overwhelmed my nervous system. So knowing how to navigate this over time is really, really important. If you are just dropping in and out, or perhaps being triggered in a state of shame and freeze is exactly the same biological response. I've tested this again and again in myself, and it is exactly the same biological response. And so sometimes we can be triggered into a state of shame by something that somebody says or by something that's occurred or happened. Sometimes these can be past events that trigger a feeling of shame. Or our system can become overwhelmed, and when we become overwhelmed, we drop into freeze, which then we also experience feelings of shame. So it can be triggered either way. And the biggest piece is really understanding what's actually happening physically, mentally, emotionally when we go into that freeze response. And I think one of the fastest ways that I have found personally to navigate it, not only taking good care of the physical body, we've got to attend to all those things good sleep when we can. Obviously that can be difficult if the nervous system's dysregulated. Balancing the blood sugar, oxygen, breathing as deep as we can, and it can feel really hard to breathe deeply in when we are experiencing freeze or shame, because our breath will be a lot more shallow. However, getting out, morning sunshine, grounding, going for a walk, doing those things, everybody already knows what they should be doing with that, but it is tending to the physical body, but then also knowing how to work compassionately with our ego survival mind as well. And this is literally the work that I do. I help people physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually to reconnect back to themselves as well. Often, as I mentioned at the start of the video, there can be very low feelings of apathy. Why even bother? Why even try? Very, very low energy. And it's all interlinked into all of those 4 key areas as well. So knowing how to work with that is really important. As I mentioned, my Thrive book has a step-by-step guide as well. If you want to grab that, I'll pop the link below as well. And self-compassion is absolutely essential. Being gentle with ourselves, gently guiding ourselves to take better care of ourselves, acting from a place of self-love, which can feel really, really difficult, particularly if you are in a state of shame, simply because the inner critic becomes so loud. So it really is about reparenting these parts of ourselves, having love and compassion, knowing that the inner critic is just trying to help us, survive, and having a lot of compassion for what we're navigating personally as well is really, really important. And if you've got somebody safe that is regulated, that you can co-regulate with, that can be one of the fastest ways of coming back out of shame or out of the freeze state as well, if it hasn't been caused by long-term burnout. If it's been caused by long-term burnout, recovery is generally a lot longer, and it can take quite a while to regain a greater sense of energy. If you're feeling like you want to socially withdraw from people, you haven't got energy to be around anyone, that is a really big key that you're either in freeze or in chronic or long-term burnout as well. So hopefully that's been helpful for you today. Really taking care of yourself though. Treat yourself as you would either your child or your best friend or a loved one, in having compassion for yourself and what you're navigating. It can be really difficult. The energies are particularly overwhelming at the moment as well, which is not helping with anything. However, it is very much a time of letting go, very much a time of surrendering. When I say surrender, like letting go of things that are no longer serving us as well. Really creating clarity on what it is that you want moving forward for yourself, and really being conscious of what you're focusing on a daily basis and how you're communicating with yourself. Remember that self-love is both a feeling and action. It's what we do for ourselves from a place of self-love, not trying to make ourselves be enough, but it's also how we feel about ourselves on a regular basis as well. Have a fantastic day. Lots of love to you all.